Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and president of BrokerageUpandRealEstateCoach.com.
And my name's Greg McDaniel. I'm the co-founder and co-host of the wildly successful podcast, Real Estate Uncensored. And
So we are so lucky to have Jia Jiang with us today. He is the author of one of my all-time favorite books called Rejection Proof. And his TED Talk has had over 6.1 million views. He's an international speaker. And we're so lucky to have him with us today. Gee, what I'd like to do is to lead up by talking about rejection proof, but our topic for today is moving from fear to superstar habits. So this is the work that you've done since Rejection Proof, but for the people who haven't had a chance to read that book, highly recommend it. And Gia, if you can give us just some of the things you did in the book, because I love some of your stories.
So the book basically was a story of me being held back by my fear of rejection for a long time. I've been wanting to become an entrepreneur for so long, but I had this fear that was just crippling, right? I was so afraid of people's opinion of me. And I was so afraid if I do, people would reject me. So to overcome that fear, I did something called rejection therapy, right? It's basically the idea is you go out and look for rejection. If you're afraid of it, if you go look for it, hey, you would desensitize yourself from the pain. You can overcome that fear. So I didn't do this for like 1 or 2 days. I did this for 100 days. And I would do, I started out by asking someone to, can I just borrow $100 from you? Then later on ask people, can I get a burger refill? I'll try to play soccer in someone's backyard. And I'll try to get a haircut at the PetSmart. So I tried all these type of things. And what's end up happening is I found so much power and freedom, but also techniques in how to, one, overcome the fear, but secondly, to actually get people to say yes to me without lying, without manipulation. I just go on and have the positive energy. I just discovered this whole new world that was hidden, from me before, just because I took that step and overcame that fear.
Can you give us some of the specific things, some of the takeaways that you learned that were in the book, some things that could help some of our listeners who are, not handling rejection very well, because, our industry is, you get rejected all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to rejection, right, we think, wow, the other person sizes me up and maybe she give a thorough analysis of who I am as a character, and she came to the conclusion that I'm not the right person. Well, that's devastating because, that says a lot about me. Actually, that's not the case. Rejection says, first of all, it says both people. It says about the other person as much as about you. And also, rejection is a natural reaction people want to give. If you just walk down the street and people pitching you things, even though those are good things, and you're not going to say yes to everything because that will be chaos. So people's natural reaction to something that's new is to say no. It's always to say no, to maintain control, right? To maintain some sort of order in their lives. That's also why that's not the end of a conversation, start of a negotiation, conversation. So most people, when they hit with rejection, they either fight or flight. Right? The fight is they try to argue with you. The flight is they just try to back away. But there are different ways you can actually avoid these two basic instincts that you have. You can actually just say, you can ask why, right? You can say, oh, may I know why? And may I know, how, is there any reason? Can I solve that problem? Or you can ask how. How is that actually even a more powerful word? It's like, okay, I take your rejection. I take that you don't want to do this. But how can I do this, right? I really want to do this for this reason, but how can I do it? So in that way, you actually lead people to your side of the table, start collaborating with you, thinking about how to solve the problem. So there are a lot of things. I can go on and on, by the way. There are a lot of things that you can do when you get rejected that doesn't lead to you running away.
So the question I have here for this is that it's something that after I had the opportunity to watch a TED Talk, you inspired me quite a bit. And I was on a call to a for sale by owner the other day, and I asked him, you popped in my brain after listening to you and all the funny stuff that you've done for 100 days. And I just asked this guy, why haven't you hired my team? And he said, I don't know. I said, well, how can we make this happen? He said, let me try another 2 weeks and see if it doesn't sell, I'll do it. And it's amazing the power of those two tiny little 3-letter words and what it can do for your business and what it can do for your psyche. So my question to you is that when you had that first aha moment, and you realize this huge power that you have just by asking small questions, did the shackles come off of you mentally? Were you able to like just the world was your oyster at this moment, and you can go and ask any question to anybody, and it's okay no matter what they said, but you can ask the question and most likely get your way? I mean, how did that feel, first off?
So there are two parts to that question. The first part is absolutely, because the real aha moment is where, in my 100 days rejection, I went to a donut shop and asked them to make me donuts that look like Olympic rings, right? The Krispy Kreme. Yeah. Krispy Kreme. I mean, there's no way they're gonna say yes to that. But guess what? When I went in, I just asked, and the donut lady, she just couldn't say no to me. She didn't know I was doing this. She was just like, okay, how do I make that? So she was like trying bend over backward trying to make that happen, where I was just there. And but she eventually she gave me a box of donuts that looks like Olympic rings. That's the one big aha moment I have, because I was like, wow, I never thought anyone's gonna say yes to me. Just in my mind, I'm always like, this is the thing about getting rejection, then toughen myself up until I get a yes someday. But I never thought I would just ask something that was pretty insane, but I got a yes. Wow, how many donuts moments have I missed in my life just because I was afraid? Just because I have all these pictures in my mind that no way I was going to get it. So that means there's a whole hidden world, like hidden part of the world where it's out there. Those opportunities, those beautiful things, those donuts that I wasn't getting just because I was rejecting myself. So that's
I've never heard the expression donut moments, but it really does work, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like I see my life is like before donuts and after donuts, like BD and AD now. So there's one that aha moment where it's like, well, actually you can have so many opportunities just by asking. The second part of your question is also interesting, especially nowadays based on the research I'm doing. It's really about you repeat, you do this over and over again, right? So in my 100 days, I became so much better. Like my second day was so much better than the first day. I just got a lot better. And especially at the beginning, I was having some sort of a compounding effect on how much better I can ask people, and a lot of that would be just experiences like, hey, if I just have a cheerful energy, just chat, and I give the other person a chance to the option to say no to me. When they feel they have the freedom, the agency to say no, they can choose to say yes. A lot of times they do, because now people are more open, right? But we don't try to take away their agency, try to force on them saying, hey, this is so good, you don't say yes to me, and you try to do that, people actually react very differently. They would actually want to say no just to gain freedom and gain agency, right? But if you give them the freedom, a lot of times you educate them on why you're the good option, they want to say yes to you. I only gained these kind of insights because I did this over and over again, and I just became better and better. So at the end, I feel I could ask anything from anyone, anywhere.
Jia, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. I really want to encourage everybody to read the book. Worth it. Certainly see the TED Talk, and it's linked in the article. But I want to go on now. We were talking last week, and you told me about research that you're conducting right now. You have a whole new direction you've taken. You're developing an app, and you're getting results that are really impressive. Could you say more about what that is and what you're doing? Because it applies directly to what we do in terms of our prospecting.
Absolutely. So there are, this has actually come from years of me like teaching people how to overcome their fear and taking that step and just go on and do it, right? That's my goal. My goal is not to get you some knowledge where you're like, oh yeah, rejection. And I mean, that's so academic. My goal is for you to go out and get rejected, and then through the rejection, get better and get yes, right? Build your business, be an entrepreneur. That's my goal. Now, what happened is when I gave on those speeches, sometimes to over 10,000 people, right? And people will be giving me standing ovations, and I would think, great, they're all going to change their lives and go home and do something different. Well, I'll be foolish or even naive to think about it that way, because most people go back to their own lives, just go back to their own ways. And it doesn't matter how much inspiration they get at that moment, they go back to their old habit and doing their own things. So I've been just thinking, how can I actually really change people? How can I get people to do something? And how can we get them to do something consistently? So it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm motivated, I'm gonna do this. Then it's like a New Year resolution, right? You go to the gym on January 1st, it's full, but January 10th is all empty, right? That's people's lives in every day. So based on those two problems of one, how do I actually translate your motivation into action, and two is how can you actually do something consistently? So I started doing this research using mobile technology, right? So we did research with this one real estate company here in the Bay Area. They're one of the biggest ones, and they're a really good company. So what I did with them is I asked the people there to do something that that they feel that's toward their goals, just one time a day, but do this over and over again. And we use technology, we put them together. They don't do this alone. So for example, with real estate, right? I asked them, the realtors, to say, hey, how about you just focus 1 hour of doing work? I know you're a broker, or your teacher is telling you should do this 8 or 9 hours a day. You should do that. But guess what? How about you just start with one? If you don't know where you're going, focus with 1 hour, just doing your work, prospecting work, the most important work, 1 hour. No distraction, no negativity from the news, no social media, but just 1 hour. You do this over and over again. What happened was just astonishing, because when people are doing this together, we have this group challenge, right? But by the end, almost 90% of people finished for over 60 days, which is really hard. Like you think, what can you get me to do something for 60 days straight every day? You can do it for 10 days, but after that, how can you get it going, right? But we have almost 90% of people who actually did this, and these are realtors. And the results for them is they made a lot more money. That's as simple as that. We have the lead measures. If you look at talking about the principles of execution, right? There's lead measures and lag measures. The lead measures everything you do, your action, your effort, your focus, and those type of things you can control 100%. 100%. Doesn't matter the environment. Doesn't matter you get rejections. You can do the same of effort. But the lag measure, these are the sales and results. We can see some real improvement. Like in 60 days, we see like around 80% improvement for these in terms of how much sales they made, how much transactions they made for this type of agents who actually did this.
So you said in 60 days, I think this is a really important takeaway, because the latest research says to establish a habit, it's not the 31 days or 30 days, it's 66 days. So what you've done is you put them into that habit. Now, what was fascinating, I thought, about your research, Jia, is you're not doing this with top producers. You're doing it with third quartile. And that means the 26th to 50th percentile, they're the bottom one half of the agents, but the top of that bottom half.
Right.
So what kinds of things have they achieved doing? I mean, what were they doing? Give us some examples of how they grew, how they're growing their businesses. And it's just, again, they're staying focused on one thing.
So for example, they would focus on our maybe just doing some very basic stuff, right? Maybe they're doing prospecting calls, right? Maybe they're sending off flyers to their farms and all those things they're supposed to be doing already. But what's interesting is when they start doing this, they start getting better. They start getting smarter very quickly. They're like, okay, how can I use that 1 hour more effectively? Maybe is to call my center of influence, right? Maybe it's like call those people. Maybe it's actually tapping into my personal network that the past client I have. And maybe when I call them, I don't just directly tell them, hey, can I sell your house? Or like you actually try to maybe talk in terms of trying to find what their pain is, or just be there as a friend and start saying, how are you doing? Is everything you need, right? This goes to show that another principle I learned from rejection, since Rejection Proof. And this is a little bit, I don't want to deviate too much, but a lot of times the best way to get is to give, to build that relationship and to offer your help. When you're offering help to people, you are developing a trust with them. And this is natural, right? If you're helping them, guess who they go to when they need something? They go to you. They know what you do and they trust you. So people will hire an agent or hire anyone is because they learn to trust that person. So by offering to help without this thing is like, okay, I'm gonna ask right after I help. No, don't do that. Just offer relationship, and you can build that habit. Again. So in this what we did here is day after day, one of the challenges we give to them is, hey, just if use this 1 hour to call someone and say how they're doing and offer them some help, and don't think that they're gonna become your agent. And guess what? If you do the offer to help, it's possible there's a good chance you'll become their agent when they need to sell a house, right? So so it's about doing that over and over again.
There's a funny thing. My father, Terry McDaniel, has been in the business for 48 years, 3 different states, a broker. And he did this funny little thing. He would have his yellow pads, right? And he'd have them in his car. And he wouldn't be in his car, but he would be, in his office, killing time between appointments or whatever else. But he did the exact same thing you were talking about just right now. But he would call them up and say, hey, Bernice, I was just driving past your house and I was thinking of you, and I would just want to call and say hi. He was sitting in his office, but he told him he was driving past the house, and he would just have conversations with them. And how's life? How's Mary? How the kids? Blah, blah, blah. What's new? How can I help grow your business? What, blah, blah, blah. Is there any introductions I can do for you? And, people, they remember that to the point where, when they see him in Safeway, they'd say, hey, you know what? Thanks for calling me the other day. I was having a rough day, and that call meant the world to me. Or, you know what? Thanks for connecting me with that individual or that organization. That really helped me boost my income, my business, my growth, my whatever. And it's not the shiny postcard. It's not the snazzy script that you have. It is just being a human being looking to help another human being. And you don't care if you get shot down, because you have no dog in this fight. You're just out there trying to bring value and joy and light to people around you. And it's, in today's day and age, I think people are waking up to that fact a little bit more. And you don't need to have the best line, the best postcard, the best website, fill in the blank. You just need to be the best person you can possibly be. I mean, I got a call from a gal the other day, and the call went like this. Hi, Greg. Yeah. This is so-and-so. I don't want this to be weird, but it's probably going to be weird. You're in my phone, and I don't know how you got in there. And we had a conversation, and it turned out to be a phenomenal conversation. And it was just because it was human being a human. And I think that's what I love about the book and about the message that you're bringing, and the thing that you're showing these agents is that just be a human, go help, and then watch where the cards fall, because it's going to be magical.
Greg, the thing that's so important right now, there is so much negativity out there, and it's just sucking our energy. And when you offer to help someone, you're feeding that energy back into them. So, Jia, I certainly have something to say on that topic as well.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, if you're looking the cable news, if you're looking at the social media, you would think our country is divided in just halves, right? You have this side and that side, and there's nothing can be in common with those people. And when people are trying to bring them in common in public, people shoot them down, right? They become targets from both sides. What's really the thing is, if you get away from that, if you just do a person-to-person conversation, you will find we have so much commonality in who we are. It doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter your background, right? So when I did these things, 100 Days of Rejection, I get emails from people all over the world and just telling me, wow, this is really empowering. And they started trying this type of thing in their own environment. And they're not from America. There are people there's a guy who did this in Finland. He did this for this 500 times. After a while, I'm like, dude, wow, that's a lot. So,
wait, he went and got rejected 500 times.
No, he was doing this kind of video blog for Rejection Therapy 500 times. But, and there's a guy, there are people in Japan, from China, from South America, from Europe, there's Russia, there's all type of people who are doing this. And what's interesting is this, when I give this topic, I just feel like people get it. People understand, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. And also sometimes you just have to overcome the thing that's holding you back. Don't reject yourself. Simple as that, right? Then I found out that topic of rejection is so human. That just brought me to all kind of people. And we're talking about the same thing. If we're talking about our backgrounds, our culture, and our maybe political beliefs, or whatever that is, you might think that's we're in different worlds. But when you sit down and just human to human, talk about rejection, talk about all those topics, we're the same. Like, we're so similar. We want the same thing. We want the well-beings for ourselves, for our family, for our kids. We want the same thing. So
Jia, one of the things we talked about when we were prepping for today's show is your 4-step model here. And that first step ties into our title, moving from fear and then finally moving to superstar habits and beyond. So what are the 4 steps in your model? And you've been seeing these agents that you've been working with have been working with these. So could you share a little bit more about that, please?
yeah. So first, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, I would just bring down so very simple. First of all, you have to take the one step, right? Take the first step. And Confucius said, in a journey worth of 1,000 miles, you want to you start with the first step, right? You got to do it with the first step. And secondly, you want to do it consistently. You want to do this. You take the one step. You don't be just like sit down, right? You do it over and over again. So we ask people to repeat an action for a period of times, right? A part of repeated behavior for a period of time, and then that behavior becomes a habit, and the habit will become their character. So you can directly influence who you are by doing what you do, but you can only do it over and over again. Number 3, we ask people to actually do it together. They don't do this alone, because do this alone is a very lonely road, right? But if you do it with other people who have the same goal as you are, and you're not competing against each other, you're not doing some sort of sales competition, right, to see who can make the sales. That way you actually drive away people, right? Those type of sales competitions would actually reward the people who are already stars. They punish the people who are already having a tough time, right? But if you get people together with the same effort, regardless of the results, effort is a great equalizer, right? Talent is unfair. Some people have the talent. Some people are born this way. Some people are maybe develop habit later on. But effort is a great equalizer, because we can all have the same effort, no matter who you are. So you get people together having the same effort toward the same goal. Those are the things that you can actually make a real change in your lives and in your careers, but also in your business. So I encourage business owners and team leaders to get their team together for this, and don't do the traditional sales competition where you reward results, but reward the effort, because the effort will lead to results, and the results will be different based on your talent, but you elevate the whole boat.
So, quick question for you. When you ran this experiment that you're continually doing with the brokers that you're working with and the agents and the people around the world, did you see more of a team efforts, bloom? The top producers, middle producers, bottom producers, and everything else in between. Did they all come together as one united front, fighting against the common enemy of failure and rejection? Because usually real estate agents people have an idea of real estate agents that we're backstabbers and we are only out for our own good, and top producers won't help the new agents and everything else. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing is that may have shifted from the experiments and the efforts that you're doing. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So this is a team effort in the individual setting. I mean, it's individual effort in the team setting, right? It's almost like I would say is when you're all doing this together, right? What you're going up against is not a quota, it's not a number, right? It's really just you overcoming your own fear, comfort zone, inertia, right? That's a common goal, and that's the equalizer. Like, everyone faces that, right? The results from the top producer might be different, right? But we don't actually say, right, how many sales you make. Right? That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we'll ask all of you to give all you can for that 1 hour, right? And then you do that. Now, when you do that, right? Then when you do that 1 hour, everyone be like, oh, good job, great job, thumb up, awesome, we're crushing it, right? So you're not comparing against the results, but you are actually all doing the same effort. And that's so important, because now it rewards both the top and the middle, and even the bottom. Then you're doing this, you can get to the middle and get to the top.
So you've seen a sharing of, when we were talking last week, you were talking about the sharing of strategies among the people, because they're not competitive, because it is collaborative. Could you say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, because again, when the competition doesn't talk about results, right? Then you're like, I'm doing this. and I'm doing that. So what you know, so what I did is I was using a like mobile technology where we actually get people to share, like, you know, when you do something, you have to check in. Or like, here's what I did today for that 1 hour. This is my best work. And people are like, oh, okay, wow, that's something that's interesting. I can do that as well. And people started like doing this. And people start what other people are doing. They start getting so much inspiration from each other, right? And then that there's no one's holding back on saying, you know, because we're not asking people to revealing your, say, here's how I did this, here's that. We just ask people to say, here's what I did. What's interesting is when people start seeing some top producers when they're doing something, they're like, well, the thing they're doing is actually, I would say, I already know. It's not something that I don't, like some sort of top secret recipe, right? But they're doing it much better because they have the experience, but also they have the effort. And now, how can I do this better so I can be as good as they are, right? Two people pick up the phone, they can say, have two completely different conversations, right? Have different results. So the people who aren't as experienced will be like, how can I get there? So they started searching the how themselves. They started to be much more open to coaching. They started seeking out to say, I'm doing these actions already. Now I might as well be better at this. So we developed this mentality for people to do something over and over again. But almost all the trainings and motivation in the world are through content, right? People are telling me, hey, you should do this, you should do this, do that. But there's no training that comes with action first. That's what we're trying to do. We'll give you actions. And I believe that if you have the actions, the content will come secondary. You're gonna be you're gonna be a lot more open to the content, to the training. But secondly, you're gonna seek it out yourself.
You know, Peter Drucker once said, people support what they help to create. And this is a great example of what you're talking about right now. Because when I tell you to do something, sometimes it's pushback, but when I come up with the idea myself, and that's what the best leaders do, they help people discover their own ideas that they will take action on. So I think that's a huge takeaway. Great.
I like to add one more thing.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So to build up on your point, most people try to train people in a top-down approach, right? Maybe having an expert and coming in to tell you what to do. I mean, those are very inspirational. Those are very effective in the short term. And also maybe you have a coach, maybe you have the manager, the broker, like leader of the office would actually do accountability group. Those are very good things. But what I found is the most effective way to motivate is not from the top down or expert, it's from your peers. It's from your peers. That's why you put all the people in the group doing the same thing. I never tell people to say, hey, you should do that. I mean, I do this in a kickoff meeting, tell them, hey, you should do this, right? But every day, they don't need to hear from me because Joe is doing this. Grace is doing this. If Joe and Grace are doing this, what am I doing? I don't want to be the one who's not doing this, right? So we actually put people on a scoreboard, and scoreboard is very easy. It's like, when you do it, you move on. You keep doing every day. You just check in, you keep going. Every day you check in. What you will see is all the other people who are checking in. You're like, wow, I cannot, I get to do this. That is so powerful. That's why we have such a high finish rate with this experiment. It was because this whole pilot, it was because they get inspiration from their peers. So we have social pressure upward, not downward, not to a behavior that you don't want to behave, but to a behavior that you do want to have.
That is absolutely fascinating. And it is so incredible, when there's a social pressure, not in a negative light, but in a positive light, like you said, rising tide raises all boats. That's the same thing that's happening right now. People are all around helping each other, during this time in our country, in our state, everyone is out there looking out for each other's fellow man. If someone needs an extra roll of toilet paper, okay, I got an extra one. If you need, a clean glass or whatever, people are there to help each other. And it's an amazing thing to watch when once there was, such stark division on multiple different topics, you see that get eradicated immediately, and people just come together as human beings to help each other. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And so I'm really fascinated, when you get done with your research and everything else, to see how all this pans out. Because I think with my 20 years in this business, and with this being the first time I've heard someone doing this, this could change the way the business is done in the future. Instead of the top producers looking down on the new agents and saying, ugh, I can't work with you because you don't know what you're doing. It's like, hey man, let me show you how to write this contract. Let me show you how to do this addendum. Let me show you how to do fill in blank. And that is a beautiful thing, man. I'm so excited, and I cannot wait to dive into your book. I mean, I'm going feet first, boots on, deep end. Let's go. Just podcast galore.
So Greg, just want to build on what you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference between such a division between haves and have-nots, right?
Mm-hmm.
The talent, some people have talent, some people have luck, right? What you end up, you have better resource at the end.
Mm.
And what's a big problem in businesses as well, right? A lot of times people cannot relate to why you're not performing. That's why superstar athletes cannot be, some of them are terrible, terrible coaches. They're like, you just did this and this is what happened. Why aren't you jumping as high? Why aren't you doing this, right? So, but a really good coach, they actually see people who they are. They find the thing that's like, okay, how I can actually elevate you based on who you are, right? But also in the team setting, right? I can't do this for each person, but how can we find a way where we can all contribute, all elevate? So if you're a superstar with extreme talent, like Michael Jordan, you go to the extreme height. But if you're like a Steve Kerr, right, who has one set of talent, you can shoot really well. We can elevate you as well. Together, you're a championship team, right? So that's a really good coach, how they can elevate a group of people. Instead of saying, why can't you dunk as hard? Why can't you like do what Michael Jordan does? That Steve Kerr will just fall apart. There's no Steve Kerr. So in the office, in the team, you have to find ways to normalize everyone, not based on the talent. Otherwise, the superstar, they will revolt. They will be like, if you're tailoring toward the lower end, they will revolt. And you want them, they're the top producer, you want them around, right? But also you want the people who are in the middle, even in the bottom, but to actually get better and better. So that's how you normalize it, through their effort.
So do you have one final piece of advice for our viewers today?
All right. Don't reject yourself. Okay. Don't reject yourself. And you can, wherever you are right now, maybe you're not happy with your state. You see there are so many superstars out there. What I'm telling you is you're not that far apart. And you think in your mind, there's a huge gulf. And maybe you watch a video one day, you think, oh, I'm a superstar, I can be there. Then as soon as rubber hits the road, you're like, oh man, I'm not as good, talented. Then you just give up, right? A lot of people are in that predicament. What I'm saying is, when you and the superstar, one thing you can get there is you through consistent effort on a daily basis. You might not be Michael Jordan, but you can be a very good player. You can maximize your own potential. So just be a little bit better every day. If you are just, let's say 1% better every day, 1%, over the time of years, compounding, right? That's gonna be, you're gonna be like amazing, like by a year later, even just 0.1% better. By the end, you're gonna be so much, have so much progress. So focus on your effort, focus on comparing against yourself, not against other people, and do this consistently in a group of accountability. That's a lot of advice. So
Jia, thank you for being with us today. We've been visiting with Jia Jiang, the author of Rejection Proof, and we can't wait to have you back to hear about your next round of, where the experiments go next, where the research goes next. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.